Oh my gosh, guys! I just went and saw Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, and that was amazing. Okay. This is gonna be my spoiler-free review. I'm gonna do another one of these sometime later. I'm actually gonna go see it a second time here in just a little bit, so I wanted to get this out for you guys. But this is going to be a spoiler-free review, so there's not going to be any major plot spoilers. There's going to be little bits about the movie. I mean, that's to be expected. It's a review. I'm not going to be able to, talk about the movie without spoiling something. But there's no, spoilers, really, within this video. It's just going to be talking about the movie as a whole, talking about some things I enjoyed about the movie, some parts that aren't spoilers that I did enjoy. And let's get started. All right. You guys ready? I'm excited for this. That was such a great movie. Hands down, if I had to give it a rating out of 10, I would say Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker is absolutely a 10 out of 10 movie. No joke. It is absolutely 10 out of 10. And it was just fantastic. The movie rocked, right? It was a great movie in and of itself. Okay, here's the thing about a movie like this, is you got to rate it on its own, and then you got to also rate it with every other movie together. Because, that's the way some of, the Marvel movies work and stuff like that. Some of them aren't great movies on their own, but when you compare them, in the whole Marvel universe to all the other Marvel movies, they're pretty good. Now, if you take Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker and you just make it its own movie, I would say it's a 9 out of 10. It's a pretty great movie on its own. There's a few things that if you didn't watch any of the other movies, you might not understand. You might be like, bro, what is this? But, it's a Star Wars movie. You're gonna watch the previous Star Wars movies, in order to, get updated on this one and, understand what's going on. You're gonna do that. Nobody's gonna, just not do anything like that. Everyone's gonna do that. So that's good. But even on its own, it's a good movie on its own, and I really do enjoy that. So, movie, just on its own, great. As a part of the whole entire saga, all 9 movies, I would say it's perfect. 10 out of 10. I felt like the ending, I'm not going to spoil the ending, I'm not going to say exactly what happens in the ending. All I'm going to say is that it was a great ending. I've seen a lot of comparisons online to Game of Thrones, and even some of the Metacritic scores and early review scores. People are like, oh no, it's not that great. I don't know what those people are on, but it was an amazing ending. Honestly, I think it was perfect. I don't think that there was a better way that you could end all 9 movies. There's no way you could end all 9 movies better than that. That was the perfect way to do it. It also perfectly connected into the other 6 movies by, this isn't a spoiler because it was already revealed in the trailer, but Emperor Palpatine is in this movie. And now, the way Emperor Palpatine fits into this movie, I guess that could be considered a spoiler, but him being in this movie was something kind of controversial, and so this is something I do want to answer real quick, is that people kind of were wondering, and I myself was wondering, I'm like, is Palpatine shoehorned into this movie? And also, does having Palpatine in this movie ruin his legacy? Does it ruin the Return of the Jedi? Does it ruin that? Does it ruin Darth Vader's sacrifice? No, it doesn't. It doesn't ruin any of that. I was really afraid that they would do that. That they're just like, well, Snoke is dead from Episode 8, from Last Jedi, so Snoke is dead. But since he's dead, let's, who do we got left? Vader's also dead. I guess we could bring back Emperor Palpatine. No, it wasn't like that at all. It was really well connected into how Palpatine played into this movie, how he was introduced, what his role was, what his goal was, all that was really well done. And the ending, it was a good ending. I myself, there's moments where I was, shocked, and I was like, oh my gosh, dude, this is incredible. Or other moments where I was like, dude, no, okay. Just absolutely on the edge of my seat. And I feel like a lot of fans are going to get a lot of payoff at the end of this movie. It is a great movie, and there's a lot of good stuff about it. Now, fan service, is that one thing that is a little worrying? I don't think so. I think that the fan service was appropriate. There are callbacks to the original trilogy, as pretty much this whole sequel trilogy has done. There's been some callbacks to that. Although, I felt like every single callback to the original trilogy was warranted and wasn't forced. Now, this is something that I didn't particularly enjoy about The Force Awakens, because I felt like that movie relied too much on the original trilogy. That movie had a lot of things based off the original trilogy. I really felt like it was trying to ride on those coattails, and not really kind of pave its own legacy, kind of like the sequels, or the prequels did. The prequels were just like, bam, we're our own thing, bam, this is how it fits. And it was kind of jarring, but then when all 3 of them came out and you got, you connect all 6 together, then it really worked out well. Now, Force Awakens just kind of felt like a carbon copy of A New Hope. So I wasn't a fan of all the different like little nods and things to the original trilogy and that. But this movie, there is pretty much every single one of them is okay in my book. And I wouldn't consider myself like a critic or like a cynic. Like, I'm not a super cynical person. But I think that Force Awakens overdid it. But The Rise of Skywalker was perfect in the way it did it. There was still callbacks. There was lines that were in previous movies. That was definitely really well done. It was good though. They had good callbacks, but having Emperor Palpatine come back in this movie, I think it was a good choice. I think that's the only way they really could have ended the saga, because if you think about this, right, having Emperor Palpatine in this movie, it makes a lot of sense, because episodes 1 through 6 was basically all based around Palpatine. So Palpatine had a big role in Phantom Menace, in Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and of course, The Return of the Jedi. So that was good. But this new trilogy is just like, Palpatine's dead. But they have Vader come back, and Vader's like, a plot point in this. So it's like, okay, so Palpatine was just pulling the strings for like 6 movies, and all of a sudden he's dead, and now we're just doing our own thing? So having him come back and have a role in this movie was fitting, because it's like, oh yeah, no, Palpatine is actually like a part of the prequels, the original trilogy, and the sequels. I think that's really well done, and it's a good choice, in my opinion. Having that was definitely really well done, and I liked it. So, as for characters, we all know Rose is going to be in the movie. Rose was a big plot point from Last Jedi, right? People hated Rose. I mean, like, the actress, she got a lot of hate online, but in this movie, I think all that is solved. I think, as a whole, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker did incredible things for fixing things that were wrong with The Last Jedi. A lot of people said that The Last Jedi was the worst Star Wars movie of all time, and that it destroyed the franchise and stuff. And at the time, I was partially on that train. I was kind of like, this movie's weird. Like, where do they even go from here? Like, I don't know. There was a bunch of plot points and like storylines and little like segments of that movie I just really didn't understand. I felt like that movie kind of dragged on, but I mean, Rise of Skywalker, it doesn't drag on. It's really well paced too, and I think it's like 2.5 hours, something like that. It just flies by. It's a good movie, really well paced, and there's no moments in the movie, at least in my opinion, where you're like kind of looking at your watch and you're like, all right, come on, let's get to some of the good stuff. I felt like that was the thing in The Last Jedi. I was kind of like, come on, bro, like, let's get to Crate already. Let's get to that battle. Let's get some like actual action going on here. None of that in this movie. This movie is like good all the way through. They had new characters, which was good, and the new characters are actually kind of cool, and like they make sense in the story and the universe. So personally, I'm not a huge fan of when they bring back old characters and like, hey, this character's back and they're, here and they saved the day or whatever. But like, Lando's in this movie, and Lando, the way he came back was good, and he came back in a way that was fitting. He was in the Falcon, that was from the trailer, Falcon with Chewie, and having Chewie and Lando reunited was actually really excellent. So, in my opinion, that's not like a callback to the original trilogy. That's like, hey, let's do something here at the end that like connects them and brings it back together, and it's good. One thing that I want to point out about the ending, this isn't a spoiler, this is something that I honestly thought was actually pretty cool, is that at the end of the movie, Chewie gets a medal. And I thought that was amazing. Because if you guys remember A New Hope, at the end of A New Hope, Luke gets a medal, Han gets a medal, and I think Leia's the one presenting them, right? Did she get a medal? I don't remember. But they got medals. And Chewie's just standing next to Han. Chewie's like doesn't get a medal. He's just hanging out. And people are like, hey, how come Chewie didn't get a medal? Like, that's racist or something like that. But in this movie, Chewie gets that medal, which you might call that like a fan service or a callback to the original trilogy, and it was forced or something like that. But it wasn't forced at all. It was genuine, and it was like, hey, it was kind of a nod and a little Easter egg and a cheeky thing to the fans. It's like, hey, remember how Chewie didn't get a medal at the end of A New Hope? Well, now he's getting a medal. But I thought that was good, And the person presenting it to Chewie, that was well done too. And it makes sense for what happened to Chewie in this movie. No spoilers, but Chewie is actually like he's a decent character in this movie. He's pretty big, and I liked the way he was handled in this movie. I felt like in some of the other movies, were actually like the way that they did it, like Force Awakens and also Last Jedi, Chewie's just kind of hanging out there. It's like, okay, Chewie's not a second-class citizen, right? He's like an OG member of the original trilogy. Like, he's one of the squad. But I felt like in the previous two movies, he didn't get treated like Han, Chewie, Leia, and Luke. No, it was like, oh, Han, Luke, and Leia. And Chewie's just an afterthought. No, Chewie's like a good character in this movie. That was good. What else? This movie, as a whole, I kind of skipped over this a little bit, but it fixes Last Jedi's problems. I think that if, like, before this movie came out, Last Jedi was still kind of really hated, but I feel like now, after this movie is out, Last Jedi is actually going to get, you know, a little bit more fan service, and it's going to get a little bit more praise. Is because now you know what happens after Last Jedi. There's some good setups in Last Jedi that I didn't appreciate at the time. One thing I did appreciate now in this movie is the bond between Kylo and Rey. That movie set up a bond between them and a connection. Also that like Force connection too. That was really cool. But you don't really appreciate it that much until you watch this movie. So I thought that was good. And the way they connected everything from The Last Jedi into this movie was definitely really well done. I mean, the start of the movie, like, there's a couple things in it where I'm like, wow, we're already right into this. Like, this is kind of crazy. But it was good that they just got right into the movie. There's no bull crap. There's no, like, casino scene where they're, like, running around doing all that stuff and fighting for what we love. It was, like, it was a good Star Wars movie. It's a good action movie and a good movie in general. Characters, though, like send-offs. Like, as we all know, Carrie Fisher passed away. And we all knew that they, like, Lucasfilm, and, like, they had already filmed her scenes for Rise of Skywalker before she passed away. And so that was definitely really good. They filmed those scenes, and so she shows up in this movie, and her role in this movie is actually really well done, and I felt like her legacy as a person, the actress, Carrie Fisher, was definitely carried on in this movie, and it didn't do anything to, like, tarnish her legacy or do anything like that. I felt like Last Jedi, in some regards, was kind of like, bro, what? Like, that whole, like, oh, she flies out the window, but she's a Force ghost thing, or, like, she forces her way back in, she's still alive, and I thought that was just the weirdest thing ever. So, I don't know. What else? The movie as a whole, they had great new characters. Okay, I gotta point that out. Great new characters. So, they had those Sith troopers. Dude, those dudes are sick. The Sith troopers are amazing. I got a little Lego one, which I actually have a video about this over on another channel, so you guys can check that out in the description if you guys want to. But the Sith troopers are actually really cool. And, okay, Knights of Ren. Here's something to talk about. Knights of Ren, this isn't really a spoiler about the movie at all, but the Knights of Ren are in this movie, and I think it's good because The Force Awakens, I felt like had a lot of potential. It set up a lot of different things for this new trilogy, and it was like, okay, bam, we're setting up new things, you know, Kylo Ren, Luke Skywalker, the Knights of Ren, Snoke, all this stuff, and Last Jedi was kind of like, oh, Snoke, dead. Rey's parents, nobody. Rey's just nobody. How does she have a connection to the Force? I don't know. This movie explains that. It explains Rey's connection to the Force, explains Rey's heritage, explains Rey's name, and it also, I felt like, had a really close callback to Return of the Jedi, but I feel like that's kind of a lot of Star Wars movies. A lot of Star Wars movies are kind of like that, where the ending, and it also kind of seems appropriate, too, for this to be the end of a saga, is also similar to the end of the trilogy, kind of like Return of the Jedi. It's a similar ending, but it's a good ending nonetheless. So, people were commenting about it, saying it's a bad ending. Dude, I don't know what they're talking about. It was good. Yeah, I don't see what else they could have done here. Like, I was honestly not expecting that at all. I was expecting the movie to be kind of, just because I had heard all these things. I personally went into the movie without any spoilers, and I'm trying to keep it that way for this video. There's no spoilers. So that was really good and really well done. The way that they handled all that stuff is that, I mean, the way that they handled the original trilogy, like fitting into this movie, was really well done. They didn't have like any prequel trilogy stuff, but then again, that was like all those movies ago, so it really, you know, shouldn't have any callback to that. Kylo Ren, he was actually like a good character in this movie, and In the other movies, it just kind of seemed like he was just like this whiny, weird character. But this movie definitely redeemed him and had him be like, he's a solid Star Wars character now. Before, he was just like, oh, I'm this whiny little brat, wanna be Darth Vader. But now, in this movie, it's like, Kylo freaking Ren, Ben Solo. Great character. I felt like Poe and Finn are actually like good roles in this movie. Now, I don't remember what happened to Poe like at all in Last Jedi. I think he was on the ship with like Holdo and stuff like that, and like that was lame. But this movie, like, it was good. Like, they had the crew together, right? They had kind of like, in the original trilogy, they had Leia, Luke, Han, Chewie. They also had Lando. They had the squad together. But in this movie, they also have the squad together. Now, I think that's good because The Last Jedi felt like kind of sucked a little bit because it was like splitting all the characters up too much. Although that's kind of what they did in Empire Strikes Back, is that they split up Luke from the rest of the group. But they didn't have like, okay, in Last Jedi they had Rey, they had Poe, and then they had like Finn and Rose. Okay, so it's like, what? So, overall, good movie. I think the movie, like, the message of the movie is really well done. And, like, the connection of the Force in this movie, it really explains a lot more about the Force and just, like, Force powers. There's some sweet new Force powers in this movie, which are honestly really cool looking. There was some, like, pretty big, like, total, like, caught me off guard moments where I was just like, wait, what? Just, like, complete, like, loop. What do you call that? Like, plot loops? No. I don't... Slipping my mind. Sorry. But there was points in the movie that I was just like, hold up, what just happened? Like, totally was not expecting it. And there was I think there was at least 2 or 3 moments in the movie where I was like that. I'm not going to go ahead and, like, talk about those things because those are spoilers. But there's some good moments in this movie where you're like, what just happened? But they were good. They were good. And the movie ended really well. Movie itself, I would say 8, maybe 9 out of 10. Movie as part of the trilogy, I would say 9 out of 10. Like, it fixes what happened wrong with Last Jedi. Also, continues on with some of the stuff that happened with Force Awakens. Now, I feel like this is kind of a problem that happened with The Last Jedi, is how they had, like, different directors. They had, like, Rian Johnson for Last Jedi, and then they had J.J. Abrams for Force Awakens, and J.J. Abrams came back to do this one. But it was kind of weird having, like, 2 different directors. I mean, they've had different directors before in Star Wars, but, like, with this movie, I've heard rumors and heard talk that, like, they didn't have, like, an overarching, like, story going on with this new trilogy, so they had just the Force Awakens set up a whole bunch of new stuff. Last Jedi was like, hey, this is what happens after that. And then the Rise of Skywalker kind of has to come back and be like, that's not what I had in mind, but we're going to play on it and, like, kind of work on it and fix it. So people were worried about this movie, thinking that, okay, this is the end of all 9 movies, all 3 trilogies. How is it going to be done? Is it going to be done well? And I think it was done well. It connects all 9 movies down together really well, and it was great. Now the opening night was honestly really cool. The fan event for it was honestly really neat. I think it's just an overall really cool experience to be able to go and watch Star Wars and be amongst, like, the most hardcore fans, be amongst, like, the first people. This is literally the first showing of the movie ever. I mean, they had, like, the early showings for, like, the press and different stuff, but, like, first for the public, official showing. And I thought it was definitely really, really good. Like, I liked it. And it was a fun time. I feel like this is going to be a movie similar to the original trilogy. Like, you always have people talking about, like, I remember back in 1977 going and watching A New Hope in theaters, and it just, like, blew everybody's minds. Or I remember going into the theaters in 1980 and watching Empire Strikes Back, and that just was absolutely incredible. The plot twist, that's the word. Plot twist was incredible, and the plot twist there with Darth Vader being Luke's father was just incredible. It just came out of left field. And then, people being like, oh man, Return of the Jedi was so cool, and that was a great, like, ending to the whole thing. That was excellent. Now, I don't feel like a lot of people had that with Force Awakens. They came back and they like watched it and they're like, this seems a lot like A New Hope. Kind of seems like Disney's kind of doing woo with this new trilogy. Last Jedi, people came out of that movie hating it, but I feel like Rise of Skywalker, people like me and people, you guys who are going to watch the movie, people are going to talk about this for a while. You know, it's going to be like, hey, I remember being there in the theater watching that movie, you know, opening night, being the very first people to watch the movie opening night, and the reactions and stuff to it. I think it was really good. The ending was kind of bad for the main villain. I felt like it was appropriate. I don't think that there was a way that they could have really ended it, because, I mean, this isn't a spoiler. Maybe it is. I'm going to say it anyways. It's not, I'm not spoiling specifics. It's a good ending. And not like objectively good, like this is my opinion. Like the ending is good. It's good. Like, yeah. Like, you don't come out of the movie being like, man, the good guys lost? Like, what? Like, it's a movie. Right? The good guys win. So how does that happen? That's for you guys to find out in the movie. But it's good. Honestly, if you guys are on the fence about seeing it, you 100% should go see it. If you are even remotely interested in Star Wars, I mean, if you're a hardcore fan, you're obviously going to go see it already. If you're even like remotely interested in Star Wars and like you go and see it and you're like, oh yeah, you know, I've seen the movies and stuff, you need to go and see this one. You need to be able to finish off the entire saga and be like, wow, that was cool. Now, after like being done watching it, I'm going to go watch it more times. But this is the end of 9 movies. As far as we know, there is no more trilogies adding onto this one. So there's no episodes 10, 11, 12. There's none of those. Who knows? Maybe in 10, 20 years they're going to come back and do another trilogy adding on or before or something like that. We do know that they're, you know, doing kind of like anthology movies like in between. They're going to be doing that like Kenobi. I think that's actually a series. I don't think that's going to be a movie. But there's still going to be Star Wars content. But I think overall I'm a little disappointed that I'm like, wow, this is the first time that we're not having like another thing coming up, another Star Wars thing coming up. Because when we first had Force Awakens in 2015, it was like, all right, Force Awakens, 2016, we have Rogue One, 2017, we got Last Jedi, 2018, we got Solo, 2019, we got Rise of Skywalker, and it's like every single year it was a new Star Wars movie, and it was great. I mean, you can't keep that up forever. I do like how they're kind of taking a step back and they're like, okay, Star Wars comes back, it's really good, it's hot for a while, but then, it has to kind of die down. So that way, it'll come back up and be good again, and whenever they bring it back. But, yeah. I mean, villain and heroes were definitely really well done. Rey's journey in this movie was well done as well. Rey's journey was incredible. And I felt like her as a character, she definitely succeeded. And like in Force Awakens, I felt like she didn't really do anything. She was just like, hey, I'm kind of a Jedi. And then in The Last Jedi, it's like, hey, I'm kind of a Jedi, so I'm going to go and train with Luke. But Luke doesn't want to train me, so I'm just going to hang out here and somehow become a Jedi, even though Luke doesn't want to train me. I was like, what? Because, I mean, if you remember Empire Strikes Back, like, Luke gets trained by Yoda, and they're on Dagobah, and they're training together. I felt like that was kind of what Last Jedi was intending, is for Luke to be sitting there training Rey. But that didn't really happen that much. But all of a sudden, Rey's like, the Jedi, and she's the last Jedi, and, and this and that. So this movie, I felt like, did a really good job of being like, okay, how is Rey really becoming a Jedi? What does she stand for? What is her journey? And, like, I mean, this is how movies work. You got, like, the hero's journey. Like, that's, like, a film trope, right? That's, like, a whole thing with, like, films and books and, like, any sort of media or something like that is the hero's journey. We learned about this in high school. So, her hero's journey was really well done. And I liked it. Movie, I'm closing thoughts here. Movie, incredible. I had to rate it 10 out of 10. Ending was good. I don't feel like there's anything that they really could have done that much better. I have no, like, this is awful. Like, I had a couple of those with Force Awakens. I had a couple of those with Last Jedi, where I was like, bro, what is this? I even had some of those with the prequels, where like the prequel, like Attack of the Clones, halfway through that movie, there's just nothing happening. I'm just like, this is awful. Even the Phantom Menace, there's a lot of times when I was younger trying to watch that, I couldn't even like watch that movie all the way through. I'd like skip to the cool scenes. Now, Revenge of the Sith, there's a couple scenes in there where I'm like, that's kind of boring. But this movie, I don't think there's anything you can really skip. Like, every scene I felt like is warranted, and every scene adds something more to the movie. Now, that's something you don't want, is you don't want scenes in the movie that don't add anything. You want scenes that are constantly building and building and building. Because if you just have something that just like, you're going up, you're going up, you're going up, and then all of a sudden you just have a scene that just does nothing, kind of plateaus, then it's just this huge break and just kind of interrupts the flow of the movie and stuff. So this movie is good, didn't have any of that, and I liked it. There was a lot of characters in this movie that, like, and a lot of things that I didn't see coming, a lot of plot twists, but that was good. I feel like that's, something you need to have in a movie, and I liked it. Now, like I said, 10 out of 10. If it's part of the entire trilogy saga, 10 out of 10. It's part of the trilogy, 9 out of 10. And a movie on its own, I would say 8 out of 10. So, did I expect that Rey's parents would be who they were? Should I say? This isn't a spoiler. Kylo was right in Last Jedi. Rey's parents weren't anybody. They're not Jedi. They're not Sith. They're just people. But, yeah. It was unexpected, right? It was definitely unexpected. I'm not going to reveal it. I will in a later video. I'm not going to reveal, like, Rey and her story and, like, her personal life. But it was good. They definitely redeemed Kylo. They redeemed Rey. Chewie was a good character in the movie. And they also did great things with Princess Leia, with Carrie Fisher. I felt like Poe had a really good role in this movie. Finn had a good role. 3PO had a good role. R2-D2... R2 didn't do anything like almost the entire movie. But that's okay, because you got BB-8. BB-8's a cool droid. They do have a new droid in this movie. That's not really a spoiler. New droid is actually pretty cool. And... yeah, great characters. Rose, the way she was handled in this movie was really well done, because you can't, like, cut off Rose from after The Last Jedi. You can't be like, oh, everybody hated Rose, well, Rose is dead now, Rose doesn't show up. She's in this movie, but she's in the movie a perfect amount, where she still has relevance to the story, but she's not like, hey, I'm a main character now, and, like, this is a whole plot of the movie. So, that was good. How they handled Rose. But movie was great. I gotta go watch it again. I'm gonna be watching it again a lot this weekend, guys. I highly recommend you guys go and watch it too. Great movie, and it's absolutely worth it. It's a great end to the entire saga. It's a great end to the trilogy, and even a great movie on its own. So even if you're not a Star Wars buff, you're not a hardcore fan, you're going to enjoy this movie. It's action-packed. It's a fun, like, sci-fi story Star Wars movie, and it's something you can just, like, take your kids to and they'll enjoy. And something you can just kind of like kick back and relax. You don't really got to think too much about this movie. They don't spell everything out for you, but that's good because it leaves a little bit to the imagination, to like speculation and stuff. And yeah, great movie. You guys need to go watch it. Review, 10 out of 10. Great movie. And I want to know your guys' thoughts on this in the comments down below. What do you guys think about the movie? I'm going to do an actual spoiler review, where I can actually talk about the movie. This is kind of hard, where there's so many things about the movie right now that I want to be like, this was such a cool scene when this person did this. I want to share that so bad, but this isn't what this video is about. So if you guys want to see a spoiler, like an actual video where we discuss the entire movie, cool scenes, awesome things about the movie, all that kind of stuff, make sure you guys go and check that out. That'll be coming out really, really soon. But that is a spoiler-free review. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.